Today is a big celebration for me. I'm going to put this balloon back here. I graduated today. I went to my hematologist, my blood doctor, and they said, you are free. You've gone through the ringer, gone through chemotherapy, and more importantly, you have gone through a very extended treatment of prednisone, and you are done. I only have to go in once every 6 months from now on. So I am so excited. And I'm hoping to have something like that for you, to have a big celebration and party when you graduate from prednisone. And so why do I even bring that up? Well, today I wanted to tell you my story. I've heard a lot of your stories of how you ended up on prednisone, and they are dramatic and everyone is incredibly unique. So I'm going to share mine with you today. As you can see, I am a fairly young mother. You can't tell that from here, but I am a mother. And I was just doing my mom thing when suddenly I noticed this rash across my chest. It was these little tiny red flat bumps. And I was like, what is that? That looks so weird. Like those little tiny red dots that people have on their skin that never go away. It was like that, except there were more and they just kept spreading. And so I first noticed it on my neck area, and then as I went through the day, it spread all the way down. I was at night, I went to bed, I Google doctored myself, and I thought, either I am having a terrible drug reaction or something else even worse. So why would I think I was having a drug reaction? Well, 10 days earlier, I'm a breastfeeding mother, and I was nursing my baby, and I got a terrible infection. I had a really high fever, and I was put on antibiotics for the one side that was infected. And then the other side got infected. And so they put me on another antibiotic. So I was faithfully taking these antibiotics every day, multiple times a day. And then this rash appeared. So where did it come from? Why did I suddenly have this rash? So I call into my dermatologist and I said, hey, I've got this rash, check it out. So they check it and they can't find any indication that it should be a drug reaction. They look at all of the things, and as a pharmacist, I'd already done that. I thought, how could this antibiotic or this antibiotic be causing that? But maybe I'm the first one. So they checked it out, and they're like, we don't think it's really a drug reaction, but we're not sure, and it's not itching or hurting you, so we don't know what to do. And I said, well, how about you check my blood? How about you check to make sure that I'm clotting? Because this, to me, looks like I'm bleeding internally. So they reluctantly checked my blood, and I thought, thank you for checking it. An hour later, they frantically tracked me down and said, you need to go talk to your doctor right now because your platelets are only 12. And I was like, platelets, all right, that's part of your blood. Yeah, okay, we're having clotting issues. Platelets are what causes clots to get all sticky and make a matrix that closes off the wound. And so they said, call your doctor. I called my doctor and they said, hey, guess what? We can't do anything for you when your platelets are that low. You need to just go straight to the emergency room. So I go straight to the emergency room, feeling totally fine except for this flat rash. And I walk in and they check my blood again, and it's no longer 12, it's 3. And why would that be a problem? Oh, because normal is 150 to 400, and I'm down here at 3. So basically, I had driven myself to the emergency room, and if somebody had hit me in the car on the way there and gotten in a car accident and I started bleeding, I could have just bled to death. Like, could have bled into my brain, could have bled on my internal organs, just completely. Nobody could have stopped it because I had no ability to make that kind of a clot. So then they said, well, even though you feel just fine, you get to spend a week here in the hospital because your platelets are so low. And I thought, no way. I'm a young mother. I'm nursing my baby. I'm his only source of nutrition. How can this happen? And they said, well, you'll just have to pump and you'll just be here for a week. And I thought, but no, it's Halloween. I have to be there for my children's Halloween. I can't miss Halloween. And they said, no, you're here. You're here for a week. So I stay there and they give me all these treatments. And one of them is, guess what? Prednisone. Really high dose prednisone. They gave me 1 milligram per kilogram, which was 60 milligrams of prednisone. They give it to me the night I got there. They give it to me the next morning. And they said, if you respond to this prednisone, then maybe we can let you go. Well, thankfully, they let me go so I could dress my children for Halloween, which was a huge blessing. But I was on prednisone. And I thought, okay, I'll be on prednisone for a short time. And then it'll be over. And then I'll be all better. And I thought, I can do this. I can do just short-term prednisone. That's not too big of a deal. But the moment they had told me, we're going to give you prednisone, I thought, oh no, not going there. I heard all about that in pharmacy school. I don't want anything to do with that drug, ever. Not ever. I don't even want a little dose pack. I don't ever want to take it. But the question was, do I want to potentially bleed to death or do I want to take prednisone? It was like, I guess I don't want to bleed to death. So I took it and I thought, in a week when I go talk to my hematologist, they're going to say, look, your prednisone worked, your platelets look good, go home, you're done. But that didn't happen. And when I went back, my platelets had gone up and then they'd gone down. So they raised my prednisone dose and then they'd gone down. And we did this over and over. As soon as they tried to drop my dose of my prednisone, my platelets would crash. And so then they'd have to go back up, and then my platelets would crash, and back up, crash. So I was on really high dose prednisone for 8 or 9 months. And finally, even being on 40 milligrams wouldn't cut it. It was no longer enough for me to get any platelet building back up. And so they had to do chemotherapy. And so I did chemotherapy and prednisone at the same time to make my platelets back into the normal range so I wouldn't suddenly bleed to death. And it worked. The chemotherapy, it was called Rituxan, it got me into remission. And that was a year ago. April was my last dose of chemo, and then June was my last dose of prednisone. And so I went to my doctor today and she said, you've been through terrible things with prednisone all of that time and chemotherapy and losing a whole bunch of your hair. You can see from here down it's thinner than up here. It's a lot thicker up here because I finally growing it back after a year and 3 months from chemo. And so that's my story of how I ended up on prednisone and how I started taking prednisone. And while I was on both chemo and prednisone, I realized that there's no good information out there for people on prednisone and that people have no idea what they should be doing to prevent all of the terrible side effects. Like I was having horrible insomnia, moods like this, just like I was happy and then I was angry, happy, just awful. And I was gaining weight. I had moon face. I had it all. And I thought, well, if I already knew all of this because I went to school for it, what about all of the millions of people taking prednisone who've never had any good information? And all they get is that package insert and it doesn't give them really good information. And so I looked, I thought, is there a good list anywhere of all the side effects that you can expect, like when you first start taking it, if you're at high doses or, long term? And there's no list out there. This drug is so old. It was made in 1955 that they just grandfathered it in. Nobody ever had to run extensive tests on what the side effects were and to show a percentage. Like a new drug these days would say, this new drug causes 10% of people to get a heart attack and 5% of people get a rash, or 1% gets liver failure, all of those terrible things that can happen if you take a drug. No one ever did that for prednisone. It's just been collecting information since 1955 to find out what those side effects are. So I decided I'm going to try to figure out what can I really expect if I'm just on it. Like, what is a typical expectation? And so I did this study, and I figured out nobody knows what that is. And then I tried to figure out, for me, what should I be doing? What habits should I be changing? How can I deal with this? Because I was a night owl before prednisone. I would stay up late and then sleep in. But prednisone wouldn't let me sleep in ever. So it didn't matter how late I went to bed. I still woke up at like 4 o'clock in the morning. So how can I function? And I finally discovered, for me, I needed to go to bed earlier so that I could get more sleep before I suddenly had my prednisone waking me up and there's no going back to sleep. It was little things that I would change. And so I made a Prednisone Wellness Checklist for me. And then I've shared it. And if you don't already have a copy, you can get one at my website, prednisonepharmacist.com. And I'll put a link below for you. And then you can have a wellness checklist so you know what steps you can take so that you don't feel so completely awful. So that prednisone isn't completely running your life like I felt it was running my life. And again, I am Dr. Megan, your prednisone pharmacist, signing off until next week.